Jai is free to play. The Hawks are playing for premiership points. It feels like Christmas Eve at Daz HQ. Welcome to our first game preview of 2026. The Hawks go back to ENGIE Stadium for the first time in 3 games when we took down the Giants in our first ever win on their home turf. And we have got a massive agenda for you to get through in order for us to be as prepared as we can be for an absolutely awesome game. Is opening round dumb? Yes, but the Hawks are playing anyway. So let's get into it. Our strengths, let's start with the positives for the Hawks, and I'm going to go down 3 different areas here: ball movement, defense, and the ruck, which might surprise some, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. Let's start with our ball movement. One of the reasons we were able to get such a lead on the Giants throughout the second and third quarters before they started reining us back was because of 2 reasons. Ball movement being one of them. The other one I'm going to talk about more in the Oppo analysis. But the Hawks last year were a top 4 side in meters gained by foot, handball receives, and were 6th in the competition for scoring from turnover. Once we were able to get in motion, we looked unstoppable against a lot of teams last year. Good, bad, and indifferent. The Hawks, especially from the back half, looked dominant as Impey, Amon, Weddle were able to just launch out of defensive 50. And if we're going to be able to do that again, we're going to be in reasonably good shape. It's also going to help the ball movement-wise out of the stoppage is going to be important as well. Ball movement might also be affected by team selection, with one of those being, does Finn play on Finn? Callahan is easily the best midfielder in this game, and I know that might sound offensive to those of us that love Jai, and we do, but Finn is the premier midfielder here, and if McGuinness is able to mitigate his impact, and I think that he could and absolutely should be given that role, then Jai and Clayton Oliver are going to cancel each other out. In fact, I would give the advantage to Jai there. And then you've got Josh Ward, who is better than Stephen Canelio. McGuinness in there makes us win that midfield battle 8 or 7 times out of 10, in my opinion. Now, the Hawks may not go down that path. That kind of scares the shit out of me a little bit because Finn and Tom Green were both equally dominant in different ways the last time that we played them. You could also make the argument, but we still won that game. I don't have anything to say against that, but I think it is worth considering. But if the Hawks are going to be able to put that ball pressure on the Giants going the other way and force them into mistakes, we are going to be ahead of the pack. It's going to be interesting to see whether we go with 2 or 3 tall forwards. It doesn't look like Kel Shadir is going to play, but is Mitch Lewis going to play after 2 games in the preseason that didn't look the strongest? Gunston and Chol, I think, pick themselves, and I think we will go with Mitch Lewis, and hopefully he can feast. It just sucks that about 2 hours before the bounce, it looks like we're going to get some rain. What about defense, though? Because we talked about the Giants' lack of defense a little bit there, but what about how our defense goes? Well, we were first in defending inside 50 retention, by the way, so clubs weren't able to get the ball inside 50 that easily against us. In fact, it was the worst for opposition teams last year. We were first for defending marks inside 50 and third for conceding scores per inside 50. What does all of this mean? Well, 2 things. 1, our structure behind the ball was unbelievably elite last year. And number 2, Tom Barras must be fit. At the time of recording, he has not completed his fitness test today, which the Hawks put out in their injury report that he would have to pass. He trained the last 2 sessions after coming up a little bit sore with back tightness in the State of Origin game. I'm still a State of Origin fan. I don't have a problem with the timestamp there. Injuries are going to happen. You just got to live with these things. I don't have a problem in the slightest, and fingers crossed that he can get up. That matchup on Hogan is going to be super important. Barras being there and Battle going to Cadman makes a lot more sense than Battle having to go to Hogan and then Scrimshaw on Aaron Cadman. That leaves you with Sicily on one of either Callum Brown or Jake Riccardi, and we might get caught out in that way. That might also give us a pretty good leverage to play Aiden Schubert, by the way, to try to stretch the GWS defense, by the way. But we shall see. I am not sure yet. But our defense as a whole, whether it is our smalls, our talls, or our hybrids, hello, Jack Scrimshaw, you absolute star, whose last quarter of that elimination final is hella underrated, in my opinion. We should be able to, of course, we're not going to be able to all of the time, but we should be able to, in key spots, stand up when it counts. We've seen recent history of us doing that, by the way. Well, what about the rucks then, Daz? Well, Kieran Briggs was very good in that elimination final, and he kicked 5 in a practice game this season, but I still don't see him as a ruckman that is going to trouble the duality of what the Hawks are going to be able to do, whether that is Chol, whether that is Weddle. Chol dominated him in that third quarter. In fact, even though Lloyd was our second highest rated Hawk in that elimination final, Marbior was the 3rd rated player on the ground in the second half. He was awesome. And the fact that he was able to get his hands on the ball after being mostly invisible for the first 2 quarters and getting him into the game in that way was a massive net positive for the Hawks. Jake Riccardi would not hold a candle to Marbior, and we might end up playing Ned Reeves anyway. In fact, if there is an opponent that I think we could exploit potentially, the Meek-Reeves combination, it might be this one. He would take the absolute piss against either Callum Brown, Jake Riccardi, or Aaron Cadman, whoever they wanted to have as their second ruckman. It looks unlikely that they're going to play Nick Madden, but if they do, I still think Reeves would have the edge there. So that's going to be interesting to see how they go. Maybe the rain beforehand is going to be a determining factor because we're still not sure. We haven't seen any AFL evidence of what Ned can do post-stoppage, which if that answer is not impact a lot, that's still a big problem. So let's talk about the Giants for a little bit here, who are going to be missing Tom Green and Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly was the super sub. Tom Green was arguably their best player, if not second behind Finn Callaghan in that elimination final. That helps the Hawks a lot. I don't know whether Sam Taylor is going to play. It looks more unlikely than likely at this point. So that's going to help the forward line in a significant way as well. But they definitely are depleted. Does that mean they're going to be a pushover? No, not particularly. But another reason why the ball movement is going to be something that we can exploit and our forward line is going to be on notice this week is because the Giants of the top 9 teams last year had easily the worst transition defense. I did a video on Daz Talks Footy highlighting all of the different ways that GWS without the ball were a genuine liability, and the Hawks took advantage of that. We saw that. They are still going to be dangerous with ball in hand as well. When they were able to move with momentum, we got caught napping as well. There was a reason that game was so close. There was a reason they were able to get back into the game. 2 of those are not going to be there, and if there is going to be a time where the Hawks are going to be able to get them, it's going to be in a game like this when they are so down. Now, granted, it's going to be a case of from the outside world, if the Hawks lose, it's going to be a disaster, and if we win, no matter by how much, well, the Giants have got injuries. Now, I've said this about every club, but I don't care how you win or how much you win by. I would rather take an ugly win or an expected win over a disastrous loss. Duh, and I don't really give a shit how people want to react to a Hawthorn win because Hawthorn won. But the Giants do have strengths of their own. They were the best rebound 50 team last year. They were 4th for goals per inside 50 and 4th for scoring from their defensive half. So their ball movement as well is going to be on show. There is a part of me, the non-Hawthorn fan in me, and what I mean by that is in an appreciator of every team, is that if we were able to have a really dry day, no rain at all, we might see one of the highest scoring games of the year. And it's not because both of our defenses are bad. In fact, the Giants on paper held up as one of the best in the competition, as did ours, by the way. But because scoring in early parts of AFL games, or early parts of AFL seasons, I should say, is so much higher, we would be able to see a real slingshotting type of game, something that we're going to be able to defend. Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash are pretty much going to be able to do as they please. The Hawks don't really play a defensive forward role, circa Jordan Lewis on Heath Shaw back in the day, and he did that really effectively, Louis. I think he kicked 4 or 5 on him one day at the MCG on a beautiful sunny day. But altogether, the Giants with the ball are just going to go, we think we can do better than you with the ball. And they might be right. However, if we're going to be able to win this game, what we're going to be able to do to stop them with momentum is going to mean more. A score on the board early in that elimination final was key. What was even more key was our ability to stand up defensively late and then able to turn the game around, momentum around, and finish them off in the last quarter. It wouldn't surprise me all that much if this game kind of turned out a little bit similar. But my 3 big keys to the game, the things that I'm going to be looking out for the most, is not letting the midfield drown, lowering the eyes inside 50, and having a spare behind the ball. I think I've spoken enough about the midfield right now that that's just going to be a really easy one to do, and Jai playing helps that in a significant way. And when the Hawks were struggling, the couple of finals runs, bombing the ball to the top of the square to effectively no one was the bane of our existence. And granted, we did that a lot better last year, considering Gunners kicked 70 goals, and whilst he is a good isolated one-on-one player, it wasn't because we were kicking it on his head. Nick Watson, Jack Ginnivan, Connor McDonald, when he's not playing through that centre bounce, and I'm pumped to see what he can do with premiership points on the line as a majority CBA player. Our ability to hit up space is going to be uber important. I think Sam Butler, again, like he did in the preceding game last year, could have a real impact here, and I think our midfielders kicking goals is going to be something to watch. Newcomb and McDonald were able to do it last year. Josh Ward, I think, needs to be able to hit the scoreboard a little bit more, and his ability to lower the eyes inside 50 is going to be awesome as well. And it would be really cool to see someone like Connor Nash bob up for a goal or two also. But if we are delivering the ball inside 50 and our movement is good enough, opening up space is going to be elite for us. If we are able to isolate Jack Buckley and Connor Iden especially, as good as they are, isolated defenders are still going to struggle. Sam Taylor, for me, is the second best key defender in the competition. And Joe Danaher helped orchestrate a Brisbane comeback in a final because they were able to get 20 metres of space and Brisbane's ball movement was unbelievable. It doesn't matter how good you are, good ball use is going to equate to good opportunities. And having a spare behind the ball. Now, granted, I think the Giants are going to want to do this as well. They're probably going to want it to be Whitfield early and Ash late. But I think the Hawks should be adopting this as well. It's going to be relatively harder for it to be a Sicily type, considering it's highly likely the Giants are going to go in with 4 talls. But Jarman Impey and especially Carl Amon being a spare back there is going to help us in a big way, whether it is to stop the drowning if we don't have momentum, for example, or if we really want to get our ball movement game going. It wouldn't surprise me also if we wanted to have a spare back and a spare up at the stoppage, whether that's a Dylan Moore or a Nick Watson if the stoppage is between the arcs, and try to exploit the Giants by foot that way, and even opening up more opportunities for Joshy Weddle as well, who was fantastic in this game. Weddle as a CBA player, Connor McDonald at the centre bounce is going to be awesome to watch, and I think the dynamic of this midfield is going to be really fun to see, of course, provided we get the 4 points, but of course, more on that when the game finishes. And now to the player spotlight. Who am I going to be watching closely in this game? I've covered a lot of players in this preview so far. My answer might surprise you. It's Jack Ginnivan, whose stats in this game last year go relatively underrated as well. 17 disposals, 350 metres gained, 11 handball receives, 3 goals, 6 score involvements, and 13 pressure acts. With so much talk around Watson, around Moore, around McDonald, Ginnivan's kind of flown under the radar this year. I loved the Flynn Perez interview about what Jack's done for him as a person, which is fantastic. I did kind of like that people think he's the devil incarnate, but he's actually a really good bloke. I feel like anyone with a brain cell could figure that out if they've ever watched Jack talk, but sure, but we love that. We love what he's doing for Flynn, and congratulations to Flynn, of course, for being our final player on the list. But I think Jack is going to be the one to watch in a significant way. Ridiculously clever player, and geez, his evasiveness. I know they're only preseason games, but that was really impressive to watch as well. For the Giants, their danger players, Jesse Hogan, Aaron Cadman, and Clayton Oliver are going to be the 3 that I think could absolutely kill us. I just think Finn Callaghan, if McGuinness doesn't play, is going to take the piss. I kind of expect it at this point, but Barras on Hogan is going to be key. Cadman last year flew through the roof from a trajectory point of view, so if Battle is the one that's playing on him, or whether it's Scrimshaw or if Barras doesn't play, he is going to be one that can have an effect in the forward line. He is a lot cleaner below his knees than you think he is. And if the ground is going to be a little bit wet, he is going to be one to watch. And Clayton versus Jai is going to be really interesting. Clayton last year, even though he played the majority of games, I think he only missed 1 or 2, wasn't great. Any player with a fresh start and a chip on his shoulder has got some things to prove. And if we're going to have a more contested midfield game, he and Jai's head-to-head could be absolutely cinema. And let's end this with the margin and the multi, guys. Am I confident the Hawks win this game? Even more so that Jai is allowed to play. So much so, I've put it in the multi. Hawks 1-39. Josh Ward over 22.5 disposals, and Jack Ginnivan 70+ fantasy points. Gamble responsibly, but also my recommendation is don't actually put this on yourself. Just follow it so it can fail in disastrous ways and we can giggle at Daz. This is just going to be a fun thing to watch throughout the year. I'm not advocating that you're putting this on yourself. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. If you're interested in my thoughts on the league as a whole, you can go follow my other channel, Daz Talks Footy. If you haven't subscribed here, please go ahead and do so. This was a hell of a lot of fun to do and will only get better and probably more polished as the season goes on. Stay safe, Hawks fans, you absolute legends, and fingers crossed that I can do the game review with the Hawks 1-0.